Here's something you've never questioned. You have a name. Someone chose it before you could speak, before you could object, before you were even a person to them yet. But go back far enough, and naming a child was not a celebration. It was a gamble, a spell, sometimes a curse. And the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Let's start with the most unsettling one. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa, in ancient China, and occasionally in ancient Greece, parents sometimes named their children ugly, or disagreeable, or crippled, on purpose, not as an insult, as protection. These are called apotropaic names, and the logic was simple and cold. Demons wanted beautiful, desirable children, so parents lied. They made their child sound worthless, unwanted, not worth stealing. The worse the name, the safer the child. Would you have done it? If you believed something invisible was hunting your baby, maybe you would have too. Now go to Rome, and the naming process gets even stranger. A newborn there did not legally exist. Not right away. The father had to physically lift the baby off the ground in a ritual called toller liberos. Until that moment, the child was not part of the household, not officially a person. Historian Beryl Rawson, who spent much of her career studying Roman family life, documented how the naming ceremony that followed was what truly brought a child into existence in the eyes of Roman society. Babies who died before that ceremony were sometimes buried without names at all. Roman tombstones prove it. Some are completely blank. No name. No record. As if the child had never been raised into the world in the first place. And here's where it gets even more specific. Roman girls were named on the 8th day. Boys, the 9th. 1 day apart. Why? Plutarch offered an explanation almost 2,000 years ago. He claimed girls matured faster than boys, so they were ready to receive a name sooner. A single day, coded into ancient gender theory, repeated in household after household for centuries. Nobody questioned it. It was simply how time moved for a newborn. Move to Egypt, and naming becomes something closer to a verdict than a gift. Consider a New Kingdom trial record involving men accused of plotting to murder Pharaoh Rameses III. Their names in the record are not their birth names. One is called Messedshur, meaning Re hates him. Another, Bimemways, evil in Thebes. A third, simply the serpent. Their original names were erased and replaced with condemnation. In ancient Egypt, your name was not fixed. It could be taken from you and rewritten as punishment. Imagine that. Your entire identity revoked and reassigned because of what you were accused of doing. But Egyptian naming had a gentler, stranger side too. According to myth, every Egyptian received a second name at birth. A secret one, given by the goddess Renenetet and never spoken aloud. Egyptologist Rosalie David, who spent decades researching ancient Egyptian religion, described this belief as rooted in something deeper than superstition. To know someone's true name was to hold power over them. Even the sun god Ra hid his real name from the other gods. The goddess Isis eventually tricked it out of him, and that single act made her more powerful than he was. If gods feared their names being known, is it any wonder mortals did too? Most Egyptian names, though, were far more ordinary, practical even. Some children were named for the conditions of their birth. One name, Imsek, meant he came quickly. Another, Imhotep, meant he came peacefully. Physical traits mattered too. A dark-skinned newborn might be named Kim, meaning simply dark. No mysticism, no ritual. Just a factual record of the day someone arrived, spoken aloud for the rest of their life. Then there's Assyria and Babylonia, where naming a child could function as an act of resurrection. Parents there would sometimes give a newborn the name of a relative who had already died. These were called substitute names, and some historians believe part of the desire to have children at all was driven by the wish to keep a dead person's name alive. Having a baby wasn't only about the future. It was about pulling someone back from the past. A child could become, in name at least, someone who had already lived and died. And some names carried an emotional weight that has barely faded in 3,500 years. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University have studied a Mesopotamian woman's name from roughly that far back. Her name translates simply to, "My mother is precious." What makes it remarkable is what the records show elsewhere. Gods, in this era, were almost never described using that word. Only human mothers were. A name that was never meant for a deity, given instead to honor a woman who was still alive when her daughter was born. Doesn't that feel oddly modern? A name as a permanent thank you note. But not every culture rushed to name a child at all. In ancient Greece, parents often waited. The naming feast was typically held on the seventh day, and not by coincidence. Infant mortality in antiquity is estimated to have reached 25 to 40% in the first year of life. Historian Mark Golden, who has written extensively on childhood in classical Greece, described this delay as a form of cautious hope. Parents waited because they needed at least some evidence the child would survive before committing to a name. A name wasn't a gift handed out freely. It was a bet, and you only placed it once you thought you had a real chance of winning. Vietnam took a version of this hesitation even further. In some working-class families, daughters were never given an official name at all. Not for years. Sometimes not ever. A temporary name would stand in until a child reached 5 or 10 years old, if a formal name came at all. And when a family had already lost several children young, the next newborn might be named Shin. It means beg, a single word, asking fate directly to let this one live. Is there a more honest name in all of recorded history? Not a wish disguised as a word. A plea. So what does all of this actually tell you? That naming a child was never simple. Never just decoration. It was protection against demons. It was legal existence. It was gender theory written into a calendar. It was punishment and myth and quiet devotion, all wrapped into a handful of syllables spoken over a newborn. Ancient parents weren't being poetic for fun. They were doing the only thing they could do in a world without medicine, without guarantees, without any certainty their child would live to hear their own name spoken back to them. And maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Every naming ritual you just heard, the false ugliness, the delayed ceremonies, the secret names, the resurrected ones, they all came from the same place. Fear, mixed with love, mixed with hope. Parents doing whatever their culture told them might tilt the odds in their child's favor. You have a name. It probably wasn't chosen to trick a demon. It probably wasn't withheld out of grief for children lost before you. But somewhere in the deep architecture of why parents name children at all, that same ancient instinct is still running. The hope that a name might carry a little bit of protection with it. The hope that saying it out loud makes a person a little more real, a little more safe, a little more likely to stay. So the next time someone says your name, remember this. Someone chose it before you could speak, before you could object, before you were even a person to them yet. And somewhere back through 50 centuries of humans doing the exact same thing, that choice was never just a formality. It was always, in some quiet way, a prayer.